Thank you very much, both of you, and thank you for coming here and present the legacy of Glasgow and how it relates to the Arctic and the climate diplomacy, which I think actually is an interesting term. I know there are many here in the audience who have spent a lot of time in recent years on the climate issue, so I will open it up straight away to questions. Yes.
James Gray, I'm a British MP. Can I just congratulate the UK government on a superb performance last year in COP26? It went extraordinarily well and really very well run, very well organised. However, that was a time of relative prosperity and economic stability, and it was before the big geopolitical shocks of the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. So my question is, how confident are you that COP27 this year will maintain that very high standard of COP26? Or what can we do to make sure that countries live up to what they promised last year in Glasgow, given the change that we've seen since then?
Shall I go first? Yeah. Well, I think the first thing I'd just comment on is Russia-Ukraine. For me, what this does, with absolutely no doubt, is just present the case to accelerate the clean energy transition, to get off Russian oil and gas, but it's part of a wider shift in the energy system. And I just quoted some of the energy pricing. So one thing we can do to drive forward from COP26 to COP27 in this very difficult geopolitical framework is get the business done of transitioning to clean energy faster. I think the other thing about delivery and action is my economic point, which is if you're a business and you're not accelerating into the clean space, then you're not going to be in business for very long. And I think one thing that COP26 did, and I know COP27 is very keen to follow up, is that we didn't only do net zero in the government, we did net zero for businesses. And that whole momentum now that is building in the business community and in the financial sector, we got $130 trillion of assets under management to commit to net zero. So I think that's where I see the momentum is it's now action, implementation, not just by governments, but by businesses. And we are short of where we need to be on the finance and on the political will, but that's there to fight for.
Great. So there's a question there at the back, in the middle. Yeah. There. Yeah. No, just a moment. Yeah. Yes.
I just wanted to ask you how net zero for the UK makes sense if you're still giving out licensing for new oil explorations in the North Sea.
So we have a transition. The key word in this is transition. We need to get there in a measured, balanced way. Right now in the UK, we have our energy 75% dependent on hydrocarbon, 25% renewable. And our 2050 net target is to flip that around to 75% renewable, 25% hydrocarbon, but furthermore, make the hydrocarbon completely net zero and make it completely green. And our view, therefore, is that the licenses, which are they're not new licenses, the current licenses are currently on being put forward, are part of that 25%. Now, if we don't have that in our economy, we'll end up having to then go back to what Europe has been doing right now and import that dirty energy from somewhere else. So it's very important that we have a balanced scorecard and we have a transition here. The hydrocarbon companies got a role to play because they are the major investors in renewables. They also have the skilled workforce that we're going to use to transition all those skills. When I go out to the floating wind farms off Kincardine in Aberdeenshire, all the skills that are being deployed in making these green windmills are all coming from the hydrocarbon space. So we're going to transition both people, investment, and energy away from hydrocarbon into renewables, but the residual that we have in the residual oil fields will be clean, green fields, and we think that's better that we do that than rely on having to import from elsewhere.
Okay, here in the middle, yes. You, yeah.
Thank you very much for the answer. Just to follow up on that, my name is Daria Shapovalova. I am with the University of Aberdeen as well. Transition is there, and yet in the response to the consultation on a climate compatibility checkpoint, the government is explicitly refusing to put in place any timeline for the phase out of fossil fuels. The checkpoint has been gutted from 6 robust tests to 3 tests, which are basically wave through for the new licenses without any possibility to fail any of these tests and without a requirement to pass these tests, and it's non-statutory. In addition to that, the climate minister is now saying that oil drilling and fracking is actually good for environment. Do you agree that this does seem very contradictory with the leadership that's been established in the field with the COP26? Thank you.
There are safeguards that have been put in place, and it's a matter of record that these will be independently monitored. It's a matter of record that environmental concerns will be taken into consideration. It's a matter of record that we want to have a balanced scorecard on energy, and that we are on the record of going to net zero by 2050. There's no rowing back of any of those commitments whatsoever, and I believe that our commitments made at COP26 and the leadership we showed the world, particularly around this concept of transition, economic transition and just transition, social transition, I believe, are up for our commitments, and we will continue to do that.
You want to add to that?
Yeah, no, thank you for the questions. And just a wider context as well, in areas like coal, where, you know, the figures where we came out of, 40% coal in our mix 8 or 9 years ago, and that's basically now down to 1 or 2 or some days 0%, 40% to 0%, because of the offshore wind investments that we created. And so across every economy in the world, we have a balance of energy, and the trick is to transition it as quickly as possible. But I think we've shown in that space how quickly you can move off a fossil fuel. So I just add that into the context.
Well, thank you very much. I think in the interest of time, we have to end it here. May I just point out to you that it's a good argument for clean energy, that Iceland is now the only country in Europe where energy has not increased in price by a single cent.
Interesting. Yeah, good point.
Okay, we have had various representatives of countries, large and small, but now we will have Harvard University, the John F. Kennedy School, coming to the stage. And I invite you all then to be ready with your questions, and thank you very much for your presentation.